Feature Friday, 9:05, election week. Who better to have on than a guy who knows the ins and outs of the election cycles in this town as well as anybody? Micheal Mahoney, Channel 9, KMBC, political reporter. Can I say, 40 years? Are you at the 40-year mark at this town?
Oh, yeah. Easy.
You are?
Yeah,
okay.
42, 43, something like that.
How about that? Okay.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Hey,
good
it's
to be
great
back
to
in
see
here,
you, man.
The palatial studios.
Yeah, it's been a few months, but listen.
No, but I mean, this is one of the nicest radio complexes I've ever been into in my life.
You guys hear that in there? Mahoney loves the studios, and he's right. No, these are top-notch facilities. Well, take me through. I know you were all over it on Tuesday night on Channel 9, but as you look back on both sides of our state line, what was the biggest surprise to you, Micheal Mahoney?
Well, number one, I thought the Democrats had a pretty good night. I'm just saying that to make sure that you're listening to me. Okay.
Hey, I'm not jumping in. I'm just listening to you.
As we were talking just before we came on the air, the fact that Missourians on Amendment 5 voted down a casino down by Bagnell Dam at the Lake of the Ozarks and yet passed Sportsbook is an odd combination to me. You would think that, and you know, it's not regional because it was a statewide vote. That if you're voting for Sportsbook and it was close, and that wasn't a surprise to me. But if you're voting for Sportsbook, and then you turn down a casino, and I'm not sure what the dynamic is on that yet. I've been thinking about it, and I can't square it up.
How much? I mean, looking at the way the questions are phrased, I think always matters. And that Amendment 5 was kind of long-winded about a casino and what. I mean, it just, I don't know. They overthink these questions sometimes.
Yeah,
and if people don't get it, they just hit no.
Right, exactly. And I understand there's some legal requirements for that, but you know, there is, you know, in Missouri law, you know, fair/clear ballot language, and they're almost never fair and clear, or they're certainly not clear.
They never are at all. Now, you mentioned, I think tongue-in-cheek, a good night for the Democrats. I mean, I look at Missouri and I say, there is no future right now for this party. They have got to start over from scratch based on how things are going in the Democratic Party in Missouri. What about you?
No, I agree. On the surface, if you simply looked at it, Lucas Kuntz should have been a fine candidate for Missouri Democrats and for Missouri independents and maybe even some moderate Republicans. You know, he was a good place on the border. He had military experience. He was talking about the economy question. All of that should have played in Missouri, but it didn't. Mm-hmm. It didn't at all, and it got beat like a gong. So I think you're right. They're at a place where they got to go back. I think Crystal Quaid, their candidate for governor, probably has a future, but it's going to be back in the legislature. There's a state Senate seat down in Springfield that's up in a couple of years, but they got to rework a lot of stuff, and they've been and this was particularly difficult because they had made some gains for the last several cycles. The Missouri Democrats, they were still a super minority, but they thought they had a shot at breaking that super majority for the Republicans this year, and it didn't happen. So they took a step back, and it's going to take a while, I think. It has been taking a while.
It has been, yeah. There's no doubt about it. Now, on the other side, Laura Kelly was hoping to flip a bunch of seats here, especially in Johnson County in the state Senate, and the Republicans actually added to their supermajority when all was said and done here.
Yeah.
So how surprised are you that in Johnson County, which voted for Kamala Harris and voted for Sharice Davids, I know these Senate districts are obviously smaller than the entire county, but she couldn't flip any of them in Johnson County.
Yeah. State Senate seats can be a pretty decent barometer of where things are going. They thought that they had a shot at taking out a Republican incumbent, Mike Thompson and Shawnee. Democrats thought that they were in really good shape against
Kelly Warren in Overland Park.
Thank you. With Karen Thurlow down in the southern part of the district. They lost a state senator up in Leavenworth. The Democrats did. So the governor is going to be playing defense for the remainder 2 years of her term, and her ability to get things done just got a lot more difficult. A lot more difficult. Medicaid expansion is down the drain for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
I saw her posting about that on social media, and I imagine she's just trying to drum up some enthusiasm around it, but there's just no way. I mean, I talked to Senate President Ty Masterson yesterday, and he said it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So what does the next 2 years look like then for Laura Kelly?
Playing defense, trying to get what she can in terms of some tax relief that she will sign off on, and even if she doesn't sign off on it, she's going to get a veto override on it now, I think. And it's going to be a very difficult situation for her all the way around. I think things like medical marijuana are probably off the board as well. I know that she wants to make some inroads on daycare. She might get some traction on that. It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about, I don't know if, I'm sure you saw these polls, like Ann Selzer had this poll in Iowa that had Kamala Harris winning by 3. Trump wins it by 15 or 12, I think it was. There was a Fort Hays State poll that got Democrats excited, showing Kamala Harris trailing in Kansas by 5. She lost it by 16. How much stock do you put into these polls days leading up to an election, and did you ever think that something like that was going to transpire?
I didn't think that that Kamala Harris was as close in Kansas as the Fort Hays State poll, and it really wasn't a pure poll, but nonetheless, it was. I never thought it was that close. Mm-hmm. Ann Selzer's methodology up in Iowa is not conventional, and although she has a history of being pretty accurate up there, and she does polling almost exclusively in the state of Iowa for companies and firms and philanthropic organizations like that, but she missed it badly. She missed it very, very badly, and I didn't believe that Harris was up in Iowa either. I mean, it just, I know Iowa politics a little bit, and there's just nothing up there that suggested to me that that was the case.
Because you had you went to Iowa all the time, right? Years ago.
Yeah. And I've still got friends in politics up there on both sides of the aisle. And, the D's I know up there were going, oh, well, this is pretty interesting. What can we do? And the Republicans up there were saying, this is not happening.
Yeah.
And, they ended up being right. So.
Micheal Mahoney, Channel 9 political reporter, is here on KCMO. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. I'm going to ask him about Quentin Lucas's future now that Kamala Harris has not won, what that may look like, what this all means for the Chiefs as well under Governor Mike Kehoe, who will take office in January. That's all next as we roll through the 9 o'clock hour. Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM KCMO. Micheal Mahoney, Channel 9 KMBC political reporter, is here on a Friday on KCMO. So there was a thought, Michael, that Quentin Lucas, our mayor in Kansas City, was hoping for a one-way ticket to D.C. with some kind of an appointment if Kamala Harris had won the presidency. That's not going to happen. He is termed out in 2027. So what is his future? We know he has big ambitions.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, perhaps even Quentin Lucas, has a firm grasp on it yet. I think he would like to... I think he would like to have a higher and bigger role in politics. I'm not sure where it is right now in the landscape of Missouri politics. It's still difficult for a black person to run statewide in this race in this state. Let's see what the future holds for Emanuel Cleaver. That district is not just the urban core of Kansas City. It extends into Clay County. It goes out to Ray County and places like that. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I don't see any indication right now, as we sit here on Friday morning right after the election, that Cleaver's done.
Well, I mean, I think right now the biggest thing for Quentin Lucas that's holding him back is not his black skin; it's the D next to his name. They all got blown out, right? I mean, that's the problem for him. He can't run statewide because the party brand is toast statewide in Missouri right now.
Right, and that requires some sort of federal appointment, and that's not coming.
No.
What is interesting though is that. You look around as the Trump transition gets underway, and Andrew Bailey's name comes up as a potential AG in it. I'm a little skeptical about that. There was lots of talk this summer about Eric Schmidt's close role in the Trump campaign, making him a possible attorney general candidate, if not that, something in the administration. And Sam Graves, who North Missouri congressman, as Secretary of Transportation, he is going to be termed out of his chairmanship of the Transportation Committee pretty quickly, presuming that the Republicans hold the majority in the House, and he could ask for a waiver of that, and he might get it. But I mean, he's a guy that's really well versed in transportation issues, especially things here in the Midwest, navigation of the rivers, trucking, all that sort of stuff. Aviation, he's a pilot. So those are the three names that I hear on the Republican side that might affect Missouri. But then again, back to Quentin Lucas, I'm not sure where he goes.
I don't know either, and that's why I asked him yesterday about something with the DNC, and I feel like that's a way he could maybe build up a national brand, because I don't see any other way for him to do it right now.
Yeah, and that's not a really good way to do it either, because that's a very inside baseball sort of job. I mean, who's the chairman of the Democratic National Committee right now?
I looked it up yesterday. Jamie Harrison, I think is his name.
Only because you looked it up.
Yeah, I looked it up. I didn't know till I looked it up yesterday. I readily admit that.
I mean, that's a fundraising job.
Yes.
It's not policy.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know. Well, now, you look at what he can do the next 2 years. Everyone's going to be talking about Mike Kehoe, Quentin Lucas, the Chiefs. Can they keep him here? Same thing with the Royals. Where does that conversation go now that Kehoe is replacing Parson? How is it different, if at all?
I think it's different from the standpoint that now Missouri, the Chiefs, the Royals, and the legislature know who they're going to be dealing with on the second floor in Jefferson City, and I think Governor-elect Kehoe is open to listening about some way to preserve both clubs on the Missouri side of the state line. The question really isn't the governor so much as it is the legislature, and whether or not the legislature wants to go along with that. Because to be honest about it, if people don't know this at all, this is a cardinal state, okay, and much more so than it is a royal state. Chiefs are a little different. Chiefs are a statewide brand now, but we'll see on that. And the Cardinals are asking for money for improvements in their ballpark, which is, I think, 20 years old. Their stadium is 20 years old. So it's not. Kehoe is open to it in some fashion. The question is, what's the legislature going to do?
Yeah. Now, John Patterson, the state rep at Elise Summit, he is going to be the next Speaker of the House, which our buddy Scott Funn at the Missouri Times, I don't know when he said the last Speaker of the House came from this side of the state. But it's
100 years ago.
100 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because the power structure's on the St. Louis side.
Yeah. St. Louis side or out in rural Missouri. The last time that Kansas City had a Kansas City-oriented speaker was Bob Griffin, who was from Cameron, but he was very attuned to Kansas City issues. And Griffin was 20 years ago.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Does that move the needle for these teams, having a Speaker of the House from this area?
On the House side, it does. The Senate's a different ball game. Although Tony Luetkemeyer from Platte County is now in the Senate leadership, or will be in the next term. So that may help if he wants to help. Lutkemeyer's kind of a budget hawk.
That's true. But he loves the Chiefs. I know that much.
Yeah.
Tony loves the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting in terms of how this is all going to potentially play out. Micheal Mahoney is here on KCMO Talk Radio. I got a couple minutes before we wrap it up. So just give me a Micheal Mahoney presidential election story, whether it's Bob Dole, your time in Iowa, what is something that as you put a bow on this election cycle, this election season, take us down memory lane? I know all your fans are calling you right now on the air. It happens when you're Mike Mahoney and you're the most popular guy in town. His phone's always blowing up. I see it. But give me an old Mike Mahoney. Give me a Bob Dole story, something from the Missouri side. What stands out to you when you think back on your 40 years?
Well, one of the things I remember probably just coming off the top of my mind, I was in New Hampshire the day of the 1988 presidential primary up there. It was in sometime in February, and it had snowed like hell the weekend before. And so it was kind of difficult to get around. And so we're with Dole, and we're in Manchester, which is the political center of the state of New Hampshire. It has the most votes. It's where the state capital isn't there, but it's the economic engine of the state. And Dole was out working a poll, and he had volunteers with signs around him. It was a pretty good image, and his staff was whispering, but you could hear it. He said, "This way, Mr. President, this way." He thought that he had the Republican New Hampshire primary nailed, and unbeknownst to him at that time, the Bush campaign had put up an ad criticizing him, and they made the buy late on the Friday before the Manchester's TV station WMUR closed for the weekend. The Dole people couldn't get the sales manager on the phone to place a counter ad or something like that, and so all over that weekend, the Dole people are kind of going, "This way, Mr. President, this way, Mr. President," all this sort of stuff, under their breath and stuff like that, so that voters really couldn't hear it. And then at about noon, we went up to Concord, which is the state capital, and he sat down with a couple of his longtime veteran New Hampshire primary assistants, and they delivered the news to him there that, look, this is not going to happen here in New Hampshire. And Dole thought that if it did happen in New Hampshire, he would take George Bush out of the race, and he'd be the nominee. So he went into this meeting, and I was standing out in the hall, all grins and up, and he came out, and you could just tell that they had gotten some really unpleasant news in there, because his face had fallen, the staffers' faces were all pretty grim, and he kind of going, "Oh, what happened here?" Wow. So it went down in an hour.
Wow. So it reminds me of they were calling him Mr. President, his staff leading up to that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just under their breath. Oh, Mr. President. Here, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So,
wow. That's like when Hillary Clinton wished herself happy birthday to the future president in 2016.
Yeah.
Can't jinx this stuff, right? You just can't do it. Don't jinx yourself.
I don't know that I believe in jinxes, but don't bite the sandwich you don't have yet.
Exactly. Well, no one knows the political news in this town, in this region, like Micheal Mahoney, Channel 9 KMBC. Hey, thank you for coming in, my man.
No, thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely. Get some rest this weekend. All right?
Yeah.
We all need it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the longest week of the year, a presidential year, because Monday's a big day. Tuesday, obviously, is a big day. Wednesday, you're doing follow-ups, and then there's Thursday and Friday, and they last forever.
They do. Looking forward to the weekend. Hey, thanks for being here, Mike.
You bet, man.
All right, Micheal Mahoney, Channel 9 KMBC, a political reporter. No one knows the town like him. I'm Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.